Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a brand new video, and today is going to be a bookish video. So if you like reading books, then grab yourself a cup of tea, grab yourself a snack and sit yourselves down and let's talk all things books. So anybody that knows me knows I love books. I am a massive bookworm. I love to read, although I do actually think I like The Hobbit. That's the wrong word. Hobby and habit together. I love buying books. So unfortunately, my to be read shelf is always going to be larger than my read shelf. It's just the way life goes. But I'm not going to be talking about my to be read pile today, because that is a time for another video that's probably going to have to be 2 parts because of the amount of books that I own. What I'm going to be talking about today is the books that I read in 2024. Now, I have got my laptop to the side of me here, so that's what I'm looking at, because I've got my Goodreads profile up. Now, I love Goodreads. I love the fact that you can make shelves on it. I love the fact that you can do reading challenges on it. I love the fact that you can just keep track of your books. And obviously, then when I'm out and about, if I come across a book, which we're not doing this year, but if I was to come across a book, I could just swipe up on my Goodreads app and go, oh look, I've already got it, because the majority of the time I go into the works, I see a book and lo and behold, I recognise it because it's sat on my shelf. Anywho, last year I set myself a reading goal to read 10 books for the year. I am quite a slow reader and it does take me a while to get through a book. However, big round of applause for me, because I managed to read 13 books last year, which we're going to discuss in this video today. So, kicking off strong with last year, I started the year with a 5-star read. I found one of my favourite series of all time. I found another author that I absolutely love, and I cannot wait for the 3rd book to come out. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it is Powerless. I loved it, and actually, funnily enough, I've just literally finished the 2nd book. The actual book, not the novella, because the novella is in here, but the actual book, Reckless. I really wish I'd done a reading vlog on that, because holy moly, the feels were feeling, and it was beautiful and stunning and everything I wanted it to be, and I ate it up. And now I need the 3rd book, which I think comes out this year, so hopefully we'll be finishing that off. But anyway, go back to 2024, because that is what we're here to talk about. The first book I read was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. If you haven't seen this around, and if by me gushing about it doesn't necessarily sell you, definitely get yourself a copy. I highly recommend. I love it. I love it. I love Kai. I love Payden. I love their relationship, and this book has got everything in it. It's got fantasy, it's got romance, it's got action, it's got thriller, love triangle. Like, you just, it's one of those that I think she like laced the pages with like crack, because I just wanted more. Like, I wanted to keep turning the page and read what was happening, and that just heightens in Reckless, which is the 2nd book. And I love how pretty the pages are, like on the chapter page. It's got like the little black details of all the flowers, which I think is really nice. I like the fact that it flips between different points of views as well. So you get like Kai chapters, you get Payden chapters, you get Kit chapters. Like, I just find that always so fascinating, the same event happening but from different points of view. Of course, I gave this a 5-star review, and this took me from the 4th of January to the 14th of February to finish. So it did take me quite a while to finish, but obviously life does get in the way and you don't always have the time to sit and read. And I'm definitely keeping this series, because I'm 100% reading it again. I love it. I want more. I need more. And I'm going to be so sad once it's done. Stunning. Then the 2nd book I read of 2024 was none other than A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Okay, so last year I started off with 2 beautiful, incredible, amazingly written series that I loved, and I found another author that I now love, Holly Jackson. I'm going to try and read so many of her books. I love the way that she writes. This story, or this series, is just so clever. I'm late to the party. Everyone and his wife has probably read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder now, but it was beautiful. As you might have seen, there is a bookmark hanging out of this book because my mum is now reading this book on my gushing recommendation of it, and as you can see, she is nearly finished, so I'll be looking forward to hearing her thoughts and feelings on this. I did give this a 5-star rating. I absolutely loved it, and if I view it, took me not very long to finish this one actually, because this is the time that I actually had to sit and read, because this was in the month before I'd given birth, so I was just sitting and reading in a lot of my spare time that I wasn't running around like a crazy person trying to prepare for a baby. So this, I started on the 15th of February and I finished on the 26th of February, so again, did take me very long to read, but it's just so clever. And I find sometimes with like mysteries, or you know, when there's cases to be solved and stuff in the other books that I've read, I try and work it out as I'm reading, just to see like if I'm on the right track, just to see if I can guess who done it, and you know, it's part of the fun experience. However, not at all. I didn't do that once within this book. I just read it. I consumed. The way Pip was doing stuff was so clever. It was fascinating, and I didn't want to read ahead. I didn't want to try and work it out. I didn't want to play the game. I wanted to read her doing it, and it was just brilliant. If you haven't read this, then please, the works sell these, so just go and buy these books. You will not be disappointed. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. That was the first two. Then I read, which I don't have my copy of unfortunately anymore, because I did do a clear out recently and I decided that as much as I enjoyed this book, I would never read it again, so we gave it to a different loving home. But my next book I read was Giovanna Fletcher's book, Happy Mum, Happy Baby, My Adventures in Motherhood, and I thought it was only fitting to read that, considering I was preparing myself for a baby, and to see it from somebody else's point of view as being a first time mum. And I love this book. I don't very often read anything other than fiction, so it was a bit of a different read in that sense, but I really enjoyed it. The way that Giovanna wrote and what she wrote about was just really lovely. It was really heartwarming. It was just genuinely such a lovely read. So I did give it 4 stars, and I started that book on the 29th of February and I finished reading it on the 11th of April. I really wish what I had done as I was reading it was highlight things as I was going through, just to refer back to, either as like a tip or a trick, or you know, just to have, just for a bit of comfort. It's very comforting. But I've got another one of her books, I think it's called Letters to Motherhood, so I'll be very interested to read that. And obviously now I'm reading it from a different point of view, because even though you're expecting to be a mum, you're not necessarily reading it from a mum point of view, like emotionally and mentally and physically. Whereas now, if I was to read it again, I think I would look at it and feel about it completely different. But at the time, I just found it very lovely. Oh no. I've just moved my tripod, so I don't know if that's made it wonky, but I'm back. The 4th book I read in 2024 was the 4th instalment. I've just realised that. That's funny. It's the 4th book of the year and the 4th instalment in the series. And actually, the Bridgerton series is going to be the biggest book series that I've ever read. This was read from April the 17th to May the 5th. And it took me a while to get through this book because I didn't really enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie, and this is very, very rare for me to ever say this, but I much prefer the Netflix series, so the 3rd season, to this book. I gave this 2 stars. This got 2 stars. I just didn't really enjoy it. It just fell so flat. I think for me, it was the title, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. But there wasn't really any romancing going on, and she definitely was not romancing him. Maybe if you've read this, let me know, but I just didn't believe it, wasn't invested, didn't enjoy it, fell flat, was a bit like meh, read it, wasn't the one was not the one, especially because I'd started the year with 2 5-star reads that were all in the series. So there was a lot to live up to from the rest of the books that I read. Moving on to my 5th book that I read was the 2nd instalment in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson, Good Girl, Bad Blood. And again, this was a 5-star read. I literally could not put this down. I loved all the books in this series, the 3 books that she wrote, but I think I loved each one a little bit more than the last. Like this one, to me, I was like, oh, tell me. Because I was like that, it got 5 stars. And actually, my Goodreads tells me, and if I did do this, this was impressive for me. I mean, I've got to have done it because I logged it. I'm impressed by myself. I started this on the 5th of May, and according to my Goodreads, I finished this on the 15th of May. So that's taken me 10 days to read one book, which is unheard of for me because, like I say, I'm quite a slow reader. But I remember actually sitting up like late at night, like, I cannot put this down. I loved it. Amazing. So what was that? 5. We're now on to 6. And 6 was another Bridgerton instalment. It was Eloise's book, which was To Sir Philip with Love. And again, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought I was going to enjoy this book so much more than I did because I like Eloise. I think Eloise is fabulous. I think that's because I'm heavily influenced by the Netflix series and I love that Eloise, and I feel like that Eloise is Eloise Bridgerton and this one was not her. I'm really hoping that the Netflix series of Bridgerton actually do all of the sibling stories, because I would be so fascinated to watch this one because I think it would translate so much better than it did in the book. I only gave this book 2 stars. I started reading this on May 16th and I finished it on June 28th. But I did hear through the grapevine that from Eloise's story, so that was book number 5, from then onwards they get very, very good. And I've just started, funnily enough, the 6th book, which is Francesca's, and I'm excited to read Francesca's because I read the first 10 pages last night and actually was pleasantly surprised by it. Now, having said that, I really enjoyed Benedict's story. Anyway, moving on, we then jumped straight back in to Holly Jackson's As Good as Dead, and this was the thickest one in the series, but I was ready. I wanted to read it and I was so excited to read it, and again I will tell you it did not disappoint because we have another 5 stars, and my Goodreads tells me that I picked this up on June 28th and I finished that one July 16th. And let me tell you, when I previously said that each one was better than the last, this was my favourite one. I loved each one a little bit more than the last, that is very true, and I gave them all 5 stars. But if you asked me, choose which one of the 3 in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder you preferred the most, it is this one. Honestly, beautifully brilliant. In fact, if I could go higher, I'd probably give this 6 stars. And I've never done that with a book in my life. About 6 stars. This was just epic. Holly Jackson is a genius. I will be rereading this. I don't very often reread books. I keep the books that I've read that I think I will reread, but because my TBR is ever growing, I never really get to go back and reread stuff, but I definitely think this is one that I will reread. Then the next book that I moved on to was the novella written by Lauren Roberts for the Powerless series. This is the book that goes in between Powerless and Reckless. Quite an easy read, and actually I ended up giving it 4 stars. According to my Goodreads, I picked this up on July 17th and finished it on July 24th. We're coming towards the end of 2024 now. The next book that I read was a short story that I actually bought out of the pound shop. I can't even remember how many pages it was, but I read it on the 25th of July and finished it on the 28th. I only gave it 2 stars. Oh, I haven't even told you what it is. It was called Sophia Cairns and the Baby Blues. What I didn't realise when I bought the book and then I read it, that it was actually part of a series, but it wasn't anything special. I didn't really enjoy it. If I'm honest with you, I don't really remember what was going on. We move on to 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I gave 5 stars, of course, and I read it. I think this is, again, one of the quickest books that I've read. I started reading this on July 30th and finished it the 12th of August. This, again, stunning, beautiful. I absolutely devoured this. I love the story. I love the way that Holly Jackson writes. 5 stars. It was incredible. I absolutely loved it. And I actually read this in tandem with my mum, which was really nice because we were literally heading the book, reading, and then all of a sudden, at the same time, we both go and then have a discussion about it. And I love that. It was like a mini book club. It was wonderful, but she really enjoyed it and I absolutely loved it. I would highly recommend this book if you haven't already read it. Then, after 5 Survive, I went and read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover because the film was coming out and I wanted to read the book before I watched the film. I think this is one of the books that everybody has read, literally. Like, you go on BookTok and it was on trend, and obviously everyone that knows me knows I'm never even on time to a trend. So I hit this book long after the hype had worn down, but I think sometimes that's better, doing things like that, in my personal opinion anyway. But I actually did enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. I started reading this on the 18th of August and finished it on the 29th of October, so it did take me a while to warm up to this book. I read my first Colleen Hoover book the year before, called November 9th, and absolutely loved it. And I've heard such good things about Colleen Hoover, so I go into her books with very high expectations. But once I actually got into it and I got sort of towards the end of it, I really did enjoy it. I can't really remember why I didn't like it from the offset. Definitely look into this book before you read it. It covers some sensitive subjects that might be a bit triggering. And then I read a very forgettable book. And I say it was forgettable because it was one of those that while I was in the story, I was like, oh, this is nice. But once I put it down, like, I didn't really think about it. Usually with books, you know, that are good and you know that you enjoy, once you put it down, you're like, oh, I wonder about this, and oh, I can't wait to pick it up and read it and find out what happens, where I didn't really feel this way with this book. It was called The People on Platform 5 by Claire Pooley. I gave it 3 stars. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was very fluffy, very simple. Wasn't expecting anything from it. Wasn't shocked that I didn't get anything by it. But I didn't hate it as I was reading it. I started it on November 1st and finished it on December 1st. That was that one. And then the last book that I read for 2024 was, of course, a Christmas book, because how else do you end a year of reading? And that was The Christmas Tree Farm by Laurie Gilmore. Now, again, I watch a lot of book themed videos on TikTok and on YouTube, which is why I occasionally like making them, because I like creating content that I would want to watch. So hopefully someone out there is watching it and is enjoying it, and if you are still around while I'm rambling about books, then thank you so much. I haven't read the first 2 by her. They are sat on my shelf waiting to be read. Now, I gave this 3 stars. I started reading this on December 2nd and finished it on December 30th. It was just a very fluffy, light-hearted, cutesy romance. I kind of expected a little bit more from it. And I don't know if that's just because there was a hype over the first 2. But I was a bit like, meh. And to me, rereading the blurb, from what I remember, I don't think it matches up very well. Somehow fate finds Ben trapped by a blanket of snow at Kira's farm. No, it's not fate at all. He makes a conscious effort, although he doesn't want to be a fixer-upper, and he tries not to be. He also makes a conscious effort to do so. I don't know if that counts as a spoiler. If it is, sorry. To me, it just doesn't necessarily match up. It's not like two lost souls having a Christmas that they will remember through magic. Like, it's because they make it like that. Am I being really cynical? Ow, have I been stung by love to believe in fluffy romance? I just didn't believe it. I wasn't invested. I was a bit like, oh. It was just a bit meh. Honestly, the only reason I've kept this book is because I've got the other two in the series. And quite frankly, I just think it would look pretty on the shelves together. Would I read it again? No. Would I recommend it? Probably not. To sum up my 2024 reading experience, I read 13 books, which total to 5,014 pages read. My shortest book was 159 pages, which was the short story that I bought from Poundland. And my longest book, with a whopping 565 pages, was As Good as Dead, which was my favourite book that I read in 2024. That takes the biscuit, that takes the crown. Give it all the hot chocolate it deserves. The most shelved book that I read in 2024 was It Ends With Us, with having that's 6,624,422 people shelving this book. Holy moly! That is a lot of people. My average rating for 2024 was 3.8 stars, and my highest rated Goodreads book that I read, oh, I can't pick it up because my mum is now reading it downstairs, was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So, to round up this video, 2024 was quite a successful reading year, and out of the 13 books that I read, I gave 5 5-star reviews, which I think is pretty good. It's now 2025. I've already finished my first book of the year, so I'm going to add that into my Goodreads challenge for this year. I've set myself a goal of 10 books, purely because I know that I can definitely read 10 books, and if I only read 10 books, then that's great. I've read my challenge, but if I go over that 10 books, then that's just going to feel nicer, isn't it? It's going to cheat the system and make it feel like I've done a bit more work because I've overachieved on my reading goal and read more. Is it possible that I could match last year's and read 13 this year? Maybe. I'm one ahead technically of my schedule. Also, just looking at my Goodreads profile, that my favourite books ultimately are fiction books, which they are because I generally only read fiction. This says young adult, contemporary romance, thriller, mystery and fantasy are all of my genres that are my favourites. I shouldn't be asking for any book recommendations at all because I have currently sat on my shelf 117 books to choose from to read. I don't need any recommendations. However, it can't be helped if a very lovely person watching this video is to just accidentally trip and fall into the comments and leave a recommendation below. You know, can't be helped. And on that note, I am now going to finish and wrap up this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry it's probably been a bit of a long one. And if you have made it to the end and you've sat and listened to me ramble on about books for this long, then thank you very much. Oh, I've seen someone else do this, so I'm going to do it. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But if you have made it to the end of the video, then not only give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Leave me a little tea emoji, like a little mug of tea, if there is one, in the... There's got to be one. I'm sure there's one, but a little mug. Just leave me a little mug emoji to let me know that you've finished your cup of tea and you've enjoyed the book content video. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you soon. Bye.